Welcome to the second edition of Indiewood Film Market 2016, South Asia's biggest film carnival. So now we are going to begin today's discussion with a very interesting interactive session with the star cast of the movie Pink. Now, Pink has been making it to the headlines ever since its release. But for those of you who don't know about it, here's a short brief. So Pink is a movie which is directed by Arundhati Roy Chaudhary, written by Ritesh Shah, and is produced by Sujit Sarkar. Now I'd request Kirti Kulhari, actor, and Andrea Tairang to come upon the stage. This session is sponsored by UN Women, and the topic in discussion is opportunities and challenges faced by women in filmmaking. The number of women behind the camera, like production designers, choreographers, directors, cinematographers, are definitely on a rise, but the number is still minimal. Studies reveal that 75% of the blockbusters in the crew members still remains to be men, and the figures are definitely alarming. Gender disparity prevails in the industry, where 3/4 of the crew involved in making the biggest grossing films over the past 20 years have been men, while less than 25% were women. In this session, the dignitaries will be discussing if the 21st century film industry in India is still reeling under the gender biases and how it compares with the rest of the world and the way forward. The moderator for this session is Ms. Nishtha Satyam, Head Strategic Partnership, Policy Impact and Public Relations, UN Women. On the panel desk, we have with us Rupa Dash, CEO, World Women Foundation, Sonia Prasad, writer, film director, Slovenia, Shrishti Arya, film producer, Namrata Goyar, senior management, Jet Airways, and film producer, Kirti Kulhari, actor, Andrea Tairang, actor. Let's have a huge round of applause for them. Now I'd request Ms. Satyam to take over the proceedings.
Ladies and gentlemen, I really extend a very warm welcome from UN Women to this session. We're delighted that we're at a space where we're opening a film festival with one of the most important issues of our times, which is to how do we really mainstream women into an industry that speaks to the rest of the world. Today is also a good reason for three other reasons. One, I think this is my only chance to be placed in front of a Satyajit Ray photo, and I'm absolutely delighted. Second, because we have some very, very accomplished women with us on stage here who we will know more about. And three, I really do want you to put your hands together for Pink, the film, the message, and its importance. And thank you so much for doing it. I think it has made a tremendous, it's a jerk that everybody needed. It's something that people wanted to see, though we all have been in parts experiencing it in some parts of our life. But it's never told as it is told in cinema. Thank you so much. I must introduce and do justice to the papers that I have in front of me and introduce our panelists. To the extreme left, we have Namrata Goyal. Namrata, who is a senior executive with Jet Airways, is also the daughter of the very well-known Mr. Naresh Goyal, and in her own right, a film graduate from the Queen's Mary College and produced her first short film at the age of 18. The film Sunaina was based on female infanticide, an issue that India grapples with still today, was screened at BAFTA. She performed as a lead actor in Black Pearl, a film on marital rape, and produced a docudrama, There's No One Like Him, on her father and his inspirational and incredible journey. Thank you for being with us, Namrata. We also have with us Shrishti Arya, who's the producer, actress known for her film London, Paris, New York in 2012. Produced I, Me or Men 2013 and The Legend of Zuna 2008. Ladies and gentlemen, we're so delighted to have Srishti with us today to be able to speak to us. Rupa Dash, to my immediate left, is an entertainment entrepreneur based out of Los Angeles. She's the co-founder and CEO of the Woman World Foundation, a global stage for women's voices, and Dash Global Media, a leading entertainment company based in Los Angeles. She's the first Indian-American managing director of the world's largest women entrepreneurship network, recognized by the White House. Wow. And the first woman to receive the International Telecom Union Award from the United Nations. Rupa attended the Anderson School of Management at UCLA and focused on entrepreneurship and MBA at the University of UALR. Thank you for being with us, Rupa. To my right, I have people that I no longer need to introduce and need no introduction at this stage. The stars of the month, and probably for a much longer time to come. But thank you for doing that wonderful film. I think each one of us have made an attempt to promote the film, to see the film, and to ensure that our loved ones see the wonderful work that were done by both of you. And I think you were incredible in it. I think the lady who introduced us set the tone very right. Is this a topic that we still must be talking about, where women are scaling heights across the world, across professions, in public relations, in diplomacy, in the government, in all spheres, but cinema, that has the largest outreach in terms of speaking to people's minds, challenging gender stereotypes, is still an industry that is male-dominated in many ways. While the number of women behind the camera has increased, it still seems to be minimal, and it's not an increase that we must be happy with. So my first question, Amrita, to you is, do you think that indeed is the reality of our times? Is it still a male-dominated industry? What has your experience really been?
I think to answer your question firstly, I must point out the fact that there has been a huge transformation from, let's say, in the 50s and the 60s, where you would not see any women. I mean, when you look at the credits, you would probably just see an actress, a playback singer, and a hairstylist. And that's it. Today, you see DOP's name, you see the editor being a woman, you see a producer being a woman, a director being a woman. And so there's a huge transformation that we've come towards. And I think that yes, patriarchy is a very big issue. It's deeply embedded within society. But I think with more and more educated people, I do think that the key is education. I think with the media being educated, with a lot more education happening around us, this entire, the whole thing about the woman in Hindi films being "main chup rahungi" syndrome has vanished, actually. The women today are much more, they're not subservient in any way. They have a position of power, whether it's a film like Pink, or it's Deepika in Piku, or it's Kangana in Tanu Weds Manu. So there is a position of power that they come from, where they exercise decision making. And so I think that's where we've evolved in terms of where we were in the 50s and 60s and 70s to where we are in 2016. So I do see it as a positive trend, for sure.
Srishi, that brings me to you. You come from a family that's grounded in films. Was there still a struggle in being what you are, in breaking stereotypes?
When I started working, that was about 25, 26 years ago. I've actually seen the business change. I used to be the only woman on set besides the hairdresser for the longest time. And I had a younger brother, and we were both very young when we started working. But in spite of the fact that I was 19 and he was 16, the guys would still ask a question to which I would respond, and then they'd look again at Goldie and they would ask him the next question. Yeah. So I've seen the business evolve from there to now, where there are a lot of cool guys who don't mind taking instructions from women. But like Namrata was saying, the patriarchy is really deep-seated, and women also, in their own strange ways, tend to feed that.
Absolutely.
Because they feel, which is really a very important thing they say in Pink, is that when you don't, if you don't stand up for yourself, you're actually standing up for the wrong side.
Absolutely.
So very often the film producer tag is given to a wife or a sister who doesn't really do anything. And they're happy not to do anything and not to have a say, as long as it's just getting a credit or a tax rebate. But it's very slow. It's been almost glacial.
Glacial, yeah.
It's been glacial. It's not been anywhere close to any other shifting that's happening across, as far as I think what women are achieving. But there's hope, and we live in hope, and we are going to stand up and try and make it happen. And if all women support each other, then I think it'll become a little faster.
Absolutely. Rupa, I think Shrishti makes two very important points that is so central to the agenda at UN Women. One is that patriarchy in itself, or succumbing to patriarchy in itself, is a very rewarding process. Particularly in cinema, you see the typical bahu who comes back home, puts the kids to sleep. It's what we are fed, and when you succumb to that image or to that self, it's a very rewarding. So it's a societally very rewarding process, because you're known as the good wife, the good mother, the good sister to have. And films have done a lot to propagate that image. The other point that Shrishti makes is women standing up for women. I think while we all talk about sisterhood, in terms sometimes professionally, there's evidence to say that while we all are good in sisterhood within families, within social issues, but professionally, do you also internationally, not just in India, beyond in your role as an entrepreneur, do you see these as issues outside?
First of all, I would like to start with a quote: "Why have wings if it cannot make you fly?" Similarly, this Indian cinema, the world cinema, why even have cinema if women are not given the central stage? So to begin with, when I started my career as an entertainment entrepreneur, I had struggled in finding femtors, not just mentors, but women helping women. So that's how I started the largest women network to women helping each other. But we do not see that because generally we do not have a very collaborative work culture, and women do not take feedback. They call it bitching, which has been a big setback. But it definitely comes down to building a culture where women can help each other out. But I must say that I did meet some incredible femtors, and they have been very instrumental in doing what I'm doing today.
Absolutely.
And most importantly, 2015 has been a historic year for the cinema because women counted 34% as lead female characters. And these characters not only were adored and admired by the audience, but they also had success in the box office. And most of these films, which had female-led films, the script was written by women. So it's not that women are not helping each other, but the numbers are really low.
The numbers are low.
So I think we need to work on those directions. Thank you.
I really do like the point that, and I think the emphasis that you played on, these are films that have worked on the box office, that have women in lead roles, but were also written by women. To that extent, I think Pink breaks that stereotype because it was a movie written by a man and directed by a man, produced by a man, and still brought out the story of women and their everyday struggles. So to that extent, I think we're just so proud that this is a step forward in engaging men and boys as a part of our struggles, and to ensure that gender equality is not just beneficial for women as much as it also frees men from stereotypes that they have to live up to. But Kirti, my question to you and to Andrea is, what was your thought process while you read the script? What went through your mind?
A very good morning to all of you. Thank you so much to Film Carnival of India for inviting us here. We have been speaking about Pink for a long, long time now. And to be very honest, we are kind of, exhausted and tired of just talking about women and their issues and empowerment. But I'm glad the question asked is more to do with us as actors and not as women. As you rightly mentioned, as you mentioned that, it's nice to have men involved and trying to, be a part of women issues and, writing a film on that, making a film on that. I think I'm not really surprised because, yes, there are, having understood the fact that there is a very less percentage of women as compared to men in the film industry. But I'm sure there are so many men in our lives as our, our fathers, brothers, husbands, boyfriends, friends. There's so many men who do understand and who do stand by you and your problems, So I think I wasn't surprised that somebody like Ritesh, who's the writer of the film, somebody like Anirudh Roy Chaudhary, the director of the film, and Shujit Sarkar, they are very, very sensitive men who have been able to write a story, tell a story of the so many things that women go through, write it in the form of like this 2 hours film called Pink, and execute it so sensitively, execute it so sensibly, so beautifully that it has touched, I haven't met a single girl, a single woman who's not touched by the story, who's not had a personal experience after watching the film. When I got the call for this film to play my character called Falak Ali, I went and screen tested for it. The first thing I was told was that it's being produced by Shoojit Sarkar. And I was very thrilled to know that, because I've been a big fan of Shoojit's work and the way he tells stories and the way he brings out his characters to life. So I was thrilled. Secondly, when I was told that it's a story of 3 girls based in Delhi who are living together, I was even more thrilled, because as you said, in the recent times, there are films being made about women like Neerja and Queen, and we have had women-centric films. To have 3 girls and to have, the incident in the film is whoever has seen the film is not so much about what happened as it is about why it happened. We are answering so many whys in the film that I just felt I had to be, there was no question in my head that I had to be a part of this very, very important and relevant film, which has the power to actually affect so many people, make them question their own selves, and maybe bring a change that we all have been talking about and trying to bring that change in the society. So, and then the third thing that I was told much later was, of course, the fact that Mr. Bachchan is going to be a part of it, and he's going to play the lawyer. I would like to, stress on this point that we did discuss this, that the things that we are talking about in the film, they had to be told by someone as powerful as Mr. Bachchan to be able to for people to stand up and take notice of. When he says something, we do listen, at least Indians do listen, and I think him doing the role of Deepak Sehgal in the film was just the icing on the cake, and I am just, after 6 months of being a part of Pink, I am just so proud, just so fortunate that I have been a part of something called Pink. So, thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Andrea. So this is my first film. Before this, I never even imagined that I would act. I'm a musician. So it was extremely different for me. When I got called and I read the script, I was very excited. I didn't know what I was feeling actually, because it wasn't sinking in, and it still hasn't sunk in yet. I think it's going to take some time. But as soon as I read it, and I just thought to myself that I have to be a part of this film. And I'm super honored and that they casted me, that they thought that I was good enough for this role, even though I had no experience before. Yeah, so I'm very happy, and I've never met any one of them before. This is my first time, and I'm so happy that I got to work with them. I would do it all over again. Thank you.
I don't think technology ever works when you want it to. But I think we're all equally delighted that the film was made and so widely watched and so widely appreciated. It's an issue that we grapple with. Almost, I think each one of us had an experience like that sometime in our life when we were much younger, much older now. But when you see it on the big screen, it's a message that is driven home, and driven home very, very well. I think the one thing that I took from the film, and this is just audience talk between themselves, is let's be careful in how we raise our boys and our girls who stand up and boys who do not create situations that need standing up. My question, again, I'm going to come back to the both of you. It's often felt, every time you see a woman achiever, you look at her and you look at her immediate ecosystem and you say, oh, she's from a big family. It's easier. But it never is. right? Because when you reach out to a mass audience, the audience only consumes what they want to consume, irrespective of where you come from, what you do. How has your experience been? What was your personal struggle? Though you come from big families, but I'm sure your struggles were no different. So take us through one or two of your personal struggles that limited or that were difficult to overcome initially.
So, it's very, I mean, I've been very privileged to have been born with the so-called silver spoon that they say. So yes, it was obviously much more easier getting into this entire aspect of filmmaking and, making the choice that I wanted to. But when it comes to struggle, I think, like you very, very clearly said, you really don't know what kind of content will work. And I know there's, somebody once said to me, when I said to them, oh, I think this will really work. So she said, why don't you go and make films? So it's a really interesting thought, because I think struggle comes for me personally from the whole aspect of the level of expectations that follows. That is this somebody who is someone's daughter, who's here because her father can afford to invest in her films? On that note, I'd like to say that I don't take any money from my father for investing any of my movies, yeah? So I go, because I think it's important to go through the ranks and, and gain your experience and finally make the films that you believe in. And I think with me, what sets me apart is the fact is that I do not think that today art and commercial belong to two different planets. It's almost like a crossover, and I think that's where the real struggle is, coming back to your question. That's where the real struggle is, because do you still need Amir Khan to advocate a Tare Zameen Par? Or just like you said, do you need Mr. Bachchan to talk about the issues of Pink? I mean, the issues of why it happened. So I think that's a struggle. Personally, I find this a struggle dealing with different kinds of writers. I feel today one of the biggest problems I have is writers don't feel confident to write stories that are different, that are edgy, because they're very afraid that producers won't produce it. So it's a very interesting correlation between the two. And I think that's a struggle that I'm facing, because I'm very happy to take that chance, but how many producers are willing to take that bait and go forward is a question that still remains. And I think, being born with a silver spoon is one thing, but then living up to it is an entirely different thing altogether.
Absolutely. Shrishti?
My story was actually quite different. I was straight out of school, and my father passed away in the middle of a film. So I started working really young. We had a film to finish. But having said that, I'll tell you, struggle knows no gender. Everybody works through what they have to, and there is no greater insult you can give a person than saying that they don't know what it is to struggle, because everybody feels that they've gone through their own set of challenges. It was especially challenging in 1990 to be a woman working in media, because they were, and I was very young and pretty and slim, and everybody assumed that this is all just a way to get in front of the camera. So they all just always assume that, if she's young and she's pretty, she's just doing this because she wants somebody to discover her. So the biggest struggle has always been to be taken seriously and to stand up and say, even today, I have the definition of a producer stuck on my wall in my cabin, because everybody just thinks that a producer is supposed to raise money. Because a writer writes and a director directs and an actor acts and a producer gets money. And that's all that there is to it. So yeah, so struggle, yeah, it's nothing I couldn't handle, and there's nothing that nobody else can handle. And eventually within the first, this job is making a movie is such an intimate experience, whether you choose to or not. You share parts of yourself with everybody you interact with. So they come to know where you're coming from and what you're doing, and whether it is Papa's money or it is your brains or whatever it is that keeps you going there. Failure, success, I don't think that's gender specific either. I think all the boys struggle as hard. And I, in fact, would like to go a little back in the conversation and say that, like Aniruddha, right? Correct, right? Yes. Has done a great job. We've been systematically seeing a lot of male directors putting out great female characters. Whether it was secondary character in, say, Heather that Vishal did with Tabu,
Absolutely.
or when you see Piku with Shujit, or you see Vidya with in Kahani,
Kahani.
or you see Neerja with Ram, and all these characters have been written except for Piku by men. And yeah, all which one? No, there were two. The one man, one woman. Parvez and the girl did the dialogue. So they've all been, being put out. So obviously there's a change happening. But cinema ultimately reflects a society. So we can say all that we want. We will make films that will make money because we all live off it. All right?
Yeah.
And we will try to get as best as we can about our politics into the system. But eventually, we're going to be able to do more material like Pink if the people are as accepting as they have been with Pink.
Yeah.
Whether it is Mr. B or just the superlative performances or the great direction, what is that magic that's keeping people going to the cinemas, to keeping them engaged, that we'll never know. Nobody will ever be able to predict that. But it's only success that will empower us. I just hope that we don't have 500 more female empowerment films that are all about women who want to kill men.
Absolutely.
I love men.
Yeah, me too. I'm with you on that. Rupa, that brings me to another question. You're an entrepreneur and that looks at films. It's often perceived, never real, never proved, but it's often perceived that when women write, direct, produce films, they're trying to be arty and they're not really looking at the commercial aspects and the viability of cinema, which is completely not true, but there still is a perceived notion. Is it like that in the rest of the world? I believe not.
Before I answer that question, I would give an example. In 2015, Jurassic World was released, and it was successful all over the world. But when you see a professional woman running around in heels, it gives us the false notion that a woman has to be always sexy and feminine. And even this treats a woman an object of desire. So that is the case all over the world. I mean, not just in India, but all over the world. And in Bollywood as well, in 2012, there was a film, Cocktail, which depicted that a man can be a womanizer and still can get married without shame. But if a woman does the same, she's subject to rejection. So I think this happens all over the world.
Yeah.
And I don't know how this is going to change, but I see if women are given the opportunity not just to work in front of the camera, but behind the camera, this might change.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Kriti, that brings me back to the both of you. Some very, very sensitive scenes in the film. I'm sorry I'm going back to the film all over again, but I really don't want to miss this chance. There are very sensitive scenes in the movie, particularly that courtroom scene where you do agree to voluntary sex work or to being paid for that evening. Was that difficult on a personal front?
Honestly speaking, when I'm acting, there is nothing personal about it. It's not like, oh my God, Kirti is doing this. No, I think I'm acting for sure, but as Falak. And for me, if anything makes sense in terms of the character, in terms of the storyline, in terms of my graph, I would do it. I mean, I'm not going to be judgmental about it. So if you ask me if the scene was tough to sort of go yes, we did accept money and we are this, so what? No, I think the challenge was, as an actor, for me to do that scene the way it just turned out was entirely a challenge that probably an actor feels. And it was a very crucial scene in the film because it just changes the whole, it just twists the story suddenly and something just happens after that. It wasn't initially a part of the script because we kept working on the script, every day that we were shooting. So at some point, the makers decided that if the court, the second half is going the way it is, there has to be a point where this happens. And Falak's character is going to do this. And I was like, it doesn't even make sense. For my character to accept something like this. Like, she's a very sensible girl. She's a very practical girl. Like she wouldn't make such an impulsive thing of, yes, I did it, you know. But I was convinced, thankfully. And it was a very long scene. What we did with the court scenes was, we used to do a lot of rehearsals. We had like a 6-camera setup. And I think I have never done a film where there were even 3 cameras, and to have like 6 cameras, I think it was a delight, and we were really pampered as actors. So we did a lot of rehearsals for that, as always. For me, I do not plan in terms of my scene that this is how I'm going to play it out. This is the point where I'm going to get angry. This is the point where I'm going to, you know, just snap or get angry or whatever. I do my homework in terms of workshops, in terms of just being mentally with my character. But when I go to the set, just before the shot, I always believe that as an artist, as an actor, you are a medium. You know, it's not really you who creates that. You know, there is something divine. There's something from the universe. The energies. You have to just be open for them to just, you know, pass through you and just create magic. And I think that's what I do before every shot. And especially that scene, I knew it was very important. I really didn't know how it's going to turn out, but something will happen. And I prayed for some, you know, God's assistance, and it just flew. Like the scene just happened the way it did, and it was a one take. And yeah, I mean, when it just turned out, I remember after they said cut, I kept crying and crying and crying. I just couldn't get out of it. And but not just me, almost 80% of the women there, they just, you know, came after cut to me. You know, they're like wiping their tears, and their like eyes are red. And Shujit came to me, Anirudh came to me. Their eyes are red. They're all crying. I was like, whoa, something just happened here. So I guess it just happened. I do my work as an actor, but what really turns out, I think I'm just grateful that it just turned out the way it did.
I do promise that you did create magic as intended to. But I think what was very important for the scene, and you have no idea what a big favor you did for UN Women, because it's a very simple issue. The moment you say, yes, I did take money, there's a sudden lack of sympathy in the audience. It's a turn that happens in seconds. And then I think you do a wonderful point in driving home that it's not about who you are, what you are, but it is about consent or the lack of it. That is the main point. I think it was so well made. Andrea, in that scene, in your response to her confession or perceived conception is, don't say that. Why are you branding us like that? What went through your mind at that point in time, as of course, Andrea, and as an actor?
So the entire time that I was playing my part, I was just being myself, because, you know, that was the only, I mean, I was the only person I knew how to be. I didn't know how to be somebody else. So when she said that, that was the first thing that, you know, I would have thought about that. That would have been the first thing I would have thought of if something like that really did happen. So yeah, so all those things were going through my head. I was just kept telling myself to just be yourself. Just don't, you know, just don't try. And if you don't like something in the script, you tell them. If you don't feel like you don't want to say something like that, then just tell them. But I just felt that if I was in that situation, I would have reacted the same way.
It can't get more real than that.
Absolutely, it can't. Ladies and gentlemen, with a panel so accomplished, it's hard to stop, but like all good things do come to an end. We only had 40 minutes, and I believe we've exhausted our time, but we'd still like to open the session to question and answers from the audience, and I'm sure you'd like to know a little more about the people that we have on stage. But before we do that, I really want to thank each one of the panelists from UN Women. It's an agenda that we fight passionately for every day of our lives, and I'm so happy to see that we're not alone in this struggle.
So there's a very famous quote by Kaifi Saab, which goes, "Zindagi jehad mein hai, sabr ke kaaboo mein nahi. Nabze hasti ka lahu, kaapte aasu mein nahi. Udne khulne mein hai nikat kame geesu mein nahi. जन्नत एक और है जो मर्द के पहलू में नहीं, उसकी आज़ाद रविश पर भी मचलना है तुझे, उठ मेरी जान मेरे साथ ही चलना है तुझे. And frankly, through cinema, that's what we're trying to achieve.
Any questions from the audience? I see one hand up, another. Do you want to be slightly more louder? Maybe the mic is not, yeah.
My name is Ruhi Jahan, and I am here presenting my film academy, Moving Image Film Academy. It's in Delhi. So, actually, I want to ask you about the films, about the theme and topics which will revolve around women within their families, the role of women within their families, and how they are suffering, and how the things play within the families. Like my academy has recently made a short film on struggle of women within her family. So, but I didn't see a lot of movies like such. Like Deepa Mehta's and her trilogy and such, but those films are not so common, or you can say so commercialized, like Pink and other films. Thank you.
Well, I'm going to let anybody on the panel answer that, but Shrishti and of course Namrata, you did make a documentary on marital rape. Shrishti, you can go first.
Yeah, see, the way I look at things is that there is no cinema without an audience. Making movies, especially mainstream films where I come from, is a very expensive proposition, and people make films where they see returns because they all expect to live off it. I personally believe that as a feminist, and I'm a proud feminist, but there is no cinema, there is a need for us to have casual feminism. All right, every film about a woman doesn't have to be only about her pain. All women have to be empowered as characters when you see them across the board, even if it's a male-centric film. Like, in a way, there was so much debate about a movie like Sultan, but if you're going to take away the choice of the woman, then how are you being a feminist about
Absolutely.
it, right? So what happens is that when you make a film which is very internal, like say Deepa's films, they are of a smaller, they are a more defined audience, and they may not reach as wide as a diverse country in India when you make a film in Hindi that you need to reach to hit your business numbers. There is a part of us which wants to, we aspire to do something creatively satisfying. But especially as women, we must understand that we are part of a business, and there are certain things that we want to hit as a business model. We must make films about the internal process of a family, but we must learn how to cost them correctly, and we must be tempered in our expectations, because those things are very specific. And when you're talking in a country like India, even though I would love to start speaking in Hindi right now, everybody may not follow it. And I am very much closer to Bombay at the moment, or Bombay. See, Bombay is a Maharashtra state, but because I'm from there, I think I'm,
Allowed.
I'm saying, yeah, but what happens is that these are very personal things. So to expect, which is why our regional cinema is doing some fantastic work.
Job. Absolutely.
Because you're talking to a more homogeneous audience that understands the nuances and the little matters. When we go on a broad scale in Hindi, we make everything little understandable, no matter which part of the country you belong in, because we need to cover all that in order to make the business a business. It's not show, it's show business. So.
One more small point. Like, actually, I wanted to make a point here that when we talk about harassment, so in India we see more than 95% harassment, more than 95% are happening, are occurring from those people who are very close to the victim or survivor, more appropriate a survivor. That's why I was asking. So,
I just want to quickly make a point there. Actually, that's the trend for the rest of the world too. India is in no isolation there. Most violence is intimate partner violence. 1 out of 3 women in the world witness violence from people that they know. So India is in no isolation there particularly, but that's a point well made, and we take it.
I'd like to add something to that. I did a film on marital rape, and it's really interesting because the whole basis of the film was consensual sex. And like we said right now, a wife has the right, or a woman has the right to say no. No means no, like you say very clearly. And that's what the film was about, that, just because I've married you or you're my husband doesn't mean that you will ask me to have sex and I'll be ready for you at all times. So it's because a woman has fundamentally the right to her own body. So I think that's a very, very important point of debate, which I firmly believe in, that unless you believe strongly that it is your own right to your body, everything else then comes with that.
And that's also an agenda that UN Women supports wholeheartedly, that there is nothing to feminism if you do not respect the choices made by women for their own lives. There's a question from the
Thank you,
gentleman in the first row.
I would just like to say to Kriti ma'am, I like your expressions in pink a lot.
Wow. Thank you so much. I just want to say something to all of this. You talk, of course, the whole session is about, talking about women and all of that. I think if we keep treating women like the victims, that's what we will remain like. I think filmmaking is not about showing women as victims or victimizing. I think it's just, we should get out of that psyche of we are the victims and, men are the whatever, perpetrators of that or whatever. No, I mean, if we are a part of the film industry, we are here to tell stories. There could be a man who's a central character and we could still learn from that character and the story of the character. So let's not victimize ourselves and the rest of the women in the world. It's okay, we are doing well, we are doing very well. We are all sitting here, you are sitting there. It's all good. So let's just focus on telling a nice story, Thank you.
Kriti, I just want to add to Kriti's point, which is, when we talk about cinema being a catalyst for advocating or not advocating women's rights or victimizing them, I just want to give a very simple example, and maybe it's a reflection of ourselves outside of cinema. When we look at a song which is मैं मुर्गी तंदूरी मुर्गी खटका दूंगी whatever and with alcohol, and you enjoy it, there are about 20 people who make that film, but there are 6 crore people out there who enjoy that song. So the question then remains, who actually is responsible for this? Is it just cinema? Who is perpetuating it? Who is advocating it? Who is taking it forward? It's something that I would like each and every one of us to think about.
Just to add to what Kritika just said, gender inequality really darkens the film industry. In 2014, again, I go back to numbers because I love them and they talk really facts. Out of the top 100 grossing films, women were 3 times more likely partially or fully nude in films. Out of the same top 100 grossing films, women had more identifiable personal life roles like a wife or a mother compared to male counterparts. Again, out of the same top 100 grossing films, men had more identifiable occupation. So these numbers speaks the amount of work that we have to do to have gender equality in film so that there will be gender harmony and we can have more, women can take a center stage. Thanks.
Thank you very much. My name is Tore Ripsen. I'm the ambassador of Iceland. It's more of a comment, if you allow me to give you. First, I would like to thank the UN Women for sponsoring this session. And I would like to thank all of you for being here. Because what you do by being up there and talking and the way you speak and what you say, you do confirm and you show we can have a change. Things can be different. I must admit, yesterday I was honored to receive an award. It was a very pleasant moment, but I felt a bit uncomfortable when I walked up to the stage. Why did I feel uncomfortable when I walked up to the stage? We were 7 or 8 men up there. There was not a single woman. This is not a criticism of the organizers, but it just tells us that things have to change. Cinema is a powerful force for that. I commend you for being here, and I hope you to continue doing the work that you're doing. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Any other questions from the audience? We have one more.
Men-centric or women-centric, it's matter of content. If the content is good, there isn't any barrier for getting a good success at the box office. You know that I'm from Telugu, Tollywood, and I mentioned some few movies that Ramulamma, Rudram Arundhati, and Kartavyam. They are huge hits at the box office, and they're critically acclaimed all over the country and world even. They really did great in even other box offices. The thing is, it's a feeling of women, not the men. If you really, actually you come up with good subjects, or even you can be part of general films. Even you can break yourself and you can get the great, what is that name, as like men. Just like you, many actors are there, even character artists or actors are there. There are already celebrities. They can endorse some films, maybe from women director or women produced, or men directed or men produced.
Sir, can you come to your question, please?
Question is, what I am saying, I am giving submission, not a question. Just what I am saying, this is outdated. Man, what is that? Men or women are same nowadays. The thing is, it is our feeling that even women also can perform very better. If they break this thing, or if they endorse all kind of films, and if they, act as a brand ambassador, or act as part of films that made by newcomers, women
Thank
or
you.
something.
Thank you so much, sir,
It's
for
a
that
submission,
comment.
not the question,
Yeah.
but the thing is...
I'm delighted that you think women could perform equally, and I'm happy to know that there are people in the world who believe that. But I think it's a little overambitious to say that women and men are equal. Fewer women continue to be unborn. There are fewer of us in schools. There are fewer of us who graduate. There's only 5% in the top boards, corporate boards across the country. There are much, much fewer in the parliament. So it would probably be a little overambitious to say that we are where we should be. But that doesn't take away from the fact that much change has been made, much needs to be done. But I do think we're in a very, very interesting point in cinema, not just in India, across the world, but particularly in this part of the world. Films like Pink, like Queen, like the many, many others are working because there are 50% of the men who are consuming that content and are happy to be consuming that content and think this is content that resonates with them. And there are women who are making these movies, who are performing lead roles, and that definitely is helping in women who are watching resonate with the character that's being played. And I think that's a very, very positive note. There's much to be done, and I'm so confident that all the panelists on the stage will do their very, very best in pushing that message across. And maybe in a couple of years from now, we wouldn't be needing a panel on mainstreaming women in media. And I think that's the hope that we live on. UN Women extends its full unconditional support to the agenda of gender equality. Media continues to be and will be one of our focus areas because there is no other way to get a message to the mass and change their mindsets. But I just want to end on one note because we've spoken a lot about women being victims and engaging men and boys. UN Women in India in 2014 launched the He for She campaign, and I must be honest, the day we launched the campaign, in my mind I was like, oh, this is one of the other jargons that the UN speaks, and nobody's going to notice what happened. And we launched the website, which essentially was nothing but a simple website where men and boys could go register and say, I'm a he for she and I support gender equality in the choices women make. And in the first 24 hours of having launched the website, one man from every single country in the world had registered. And we were so overwhelmed to see that it's probably also an issue that we've always spoken about men as a part of the problem and never part of the solution. And I'm happy that the movies that we are making, the content that we're consuming is pushing us not to the other side of the spectrum, but to a more gender equal world and in a world that we all have an equal space to make our voices heard. Thank you so much for being with us. I thank Namrata, Shrishti, Rupa, Kirti, and Andrea for being with us today. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for all your patient hearing and all those interesting questions.